Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us today. Thank you for attending today's webcast where we are going to be discussing the launch of Arcserve UDP Archiving. My name is Mary Owen, and I'm going to be helping out our hosts today. They are Christophe Bertrand, who is the VP of Product Marketing here at Arcserve, Erica Antony, who is Arcserve's VP of Product Management, and Mark Johnson, who is one of our principal pre-sales consultants. So as we're going through this, I'm sure you'll probably have a lot of questions, as most people do with a new product. So we'd love to hear those from you. As we're going through this, please do send us the questions using the question section of your interface, and we will get to as many of them as possible at the end of the event. Today's webcast is also being recorded, so I will be sending out an email over the next couple of days with a link to the recording so you can watch it again or share it as you would like. So with that out of the way, take it away, Christophe.
Thank you very much, Mary. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this WebEx. So you asked us for email archiving, and we answered. A while back, we surveyed you, our end users, as well as our partners, and out of all of the many options that we offered in the survey, you told us that you were looking for a way to better protect data long-term in an archive. And looking more closely, clearly email archiving is one of the big rocks we have to climb. So we're very, very proud to announce our new solution, Arcserve UDP Archiving. It is part of the UDP family. And, you know, just like any organization in the enterprise space, many of you in what we define as the mid-market, which is 250 to 2,500 employees, you have critical needs for what will be associated with compliance or email search, typically driven by legal requirements, as well as long-term retention of emails in a way that's optimized. So what we did is we went out and acquired a company that was essentially a technology company that was founded by archiving experts, and they really had the right solution for our portfolio. We wanted a solution that would fit very nicely and very organically into UDP, but also we wanted to provide you with a very comprehensive feature set. And I'll go through some of that in a minute, and Erica will go through the details as well. One of the big requirements we also placed on this technology was to be naturally cloud-friendly, but also work well on premises. So in essence here, what we have is a solution that meets those requirements that you asked us to work on. Our partners as well were very key in driving these requirements, and we have a solution that you will find and you will see has been really developed to meet some use cases that are very critical today. It's a very natural extension in that sense of our technology to this adjacent technology of archiving. So there are three primary use cases that I'd like to talk about. And by the way, this solution that we're offering today, which will be available in the next few weeks to purchase, is essentially driven by and was architected based on use cases. And there are three of them that are the big ones. Now, of course, every use case has sub-use cases, but I'm sure you'll see that these are the big ones. Obviously, requirements around compliance are very, very key. Compliance is something that affects everybody in every industry, in every geography, and there are many variations of those requirements. Essentially, from an email archiving perspective, compliance is really about the ability to manage the emails with retention policies such that you keep the data and the emails for a certain period of time, or that you demonstrate that you have disposed of them after a certain period of time. So there are a couple of very sort of opposing forces here, but they really stem from the same notion of having a long-term email that is retained long-term, and then managed out of the archive. So that has to happen flawlessly, automatically, and of course be in compliance with the regulations that apply to you. In North America, there are many requirements around compliance that apply to, again, every industry, every vertical. The other very important use case is if you've ever had to look for an email and you don't have a very good archive in place that has optimized and advanced search capabilities, it will take you hours and hours and hours. And I will talk about that in a minute, but recovering from a backup does not necessarily guarantee that, by the way, you can recover what you need. The one thing about archiving from a legal perspective as well as from a compliance standpoint is that it has to be immutable. In other words, whatever email has come in and whatever email has gone out has to be preserved and cannot be altered or changed until it expires. From a legal search perspective, you can see that you want to make sure you have access to everything, that it hasn't been deleted, for example. A backup won't understand that. And then the third use case is the fact that you may have a few years of email on your server. Maybe it's an on-premise server where you have 3, 4, 5 years of email. You don't really need to keep all of those years, especially with potentially employees or users who have left the business or the organization. Why not keep a few months or a year of email and then archive the rest? The benefit of a modern archiving solution such as what we have is that it will still empower employees to go search for their emails individually. They will only have access to their email, so that maybe that attachment from a couple of years ago or that email from 2.5 years ago, they can still go look for that very easily. We have some great capabilities in this solution that make it very, very simple for end users to go get those older emails back into their Outlook environment, for example. So this is one aspect. The other is the fact that maybe you're migrating your environment, your email solution to an online solution like Office 365. Well, you're not going to go migrate 4 years of emails. You're just going to have to archive that first. So ingesting older emails is something we do very well with this solution. All in all, it definitely is an operational efficiency play as well as a storage efficiency benefit if you are on premise, whereby you're going to be freeing up a lot of storage space by having an archive that's optimized with single instance storage and a number of other capabilities to compress that even further in the archive. So moving on to the next slide, the one thing I wanted to cover briefly before we get into the architecture of the product is, look, backup is not archiving. These are different animals. Backup is really in the context of recovery or disaster recovery. If data has been lost or has become inaccessible, recovering from a backup is the way to do it. An archive is really more about long-term preservation and retention combined with great search capabilities. So the point is that if something goes wrong with your email environment, you really want to use a backup to recover it. From a compliance or long-term retention perspective or legal search perspective, archive or email archiving is really the way to go. It's not a good idea to go recover from an email archive because it's just not designed for that. These are different engines. They have different requirements. They work differently. So again, there is definitely a big difference. And by the way, a backup is not a good way to be compliant. I want to be very clear. From the perspective of an end user being able to modify emails, if you back up a mailbox, if I have deleted all of those emails, well, they're gone. They're not going to be in a backup because they're gone. The backup solution or process understands what it can protect, but will only protect what is in the mailbox. Versus an archive, in this case, UDP archiving, that will have collected all of the inbound and outbound emails, whether you delete them later or not, and you cannot touch them as an end user or anyone, as a matter of fact, until they expire. So let's take a closer look at the solution. And let me cover the topology, and then I'll turn it over to Erica to go into some of the features in more detail. And we have some great capabilities. First of all, in terms of the platforms we do support all of the popular email platforms such as Office 365 and Exchange, but also Gmail and Domino. The delivery of the solution today is through virtual machines. So it's a virtual appliance in a sense here. And you can deploy the solution either with an OVF, Hyper-V, virtual machine, or for those of you who like to leverage public cloud, we also support Amazon Web Services, specifically the AMI machine. So the benefit here is that obviously you have options, you have choice, and one of the things that we'll delve into a little deeper in a minute will be the fact that this is a multi-tenant solution. So it allows you to maybe have in your organization 2 or 3 companies that you're responsible for, and they're in different activities and may have different compliance rules or different email rules, or maybe they're in a couple of countries. Maybe you have one business in Canada and one in the United States, and in which case different compliance and expiration and type of requirements or burden of proof would be, those requirements would be potentially vastly different, and therefore you cannot manage with just one set of rules. You have to have this multi-tenancy capability. So it's a great capability here. And then on the access side, one of the things I mentioned earlier was the employee level, the fact that an employee can have access to all the messages that he or she ever sent or received through a very simple plugin that you'll actually get to take a look at, or through the web interface, which is very easy to use. By the way, we also offer a couple of administration levels with the super admin, especially for multi-tenancy. That's where you would do it, and then the admin, which is where you're going to create and manage all of the compliance rules or retention rules that you want to apply. As a matter of fact, there'll be a demonstration at the end of this webinar where you will see from Mark all the things you can do and the various levels of administration. The auditor level is where you get to access all of the messages, and that's where, for example, an HR person or legal counsel can go look at and do searches and look at whatever they're interested in with very advanced capabilities. I should also mention that we do not use stubbing in this solution. Stubbing is a pretty archaic form of archiving. We really have a solution that's light from that perspective and a lot more efficient than stubbing-based type of technologies. With this, I'd like to turn it over to Erica for the feature set.
Thanks, Christophe. Yeah, so a good place to dive in is with the architecture, the infrastructure, and Christophe mentioned a couple of times multi-tenant deployment. And why is this important? If you work at a firm that manages multiple sections of your business, if you kind of operate independently parts of the business, or even service providers, as we talk about partners, it's really important to sort of isolate or segregate the information from one customer to another. And this is really complemented by the access management that I talked about. So within this, you have different layers of built-in role-based access management to offer the right level of access to each individual. So going to the next slide, let's talk about who are those people and what kind of access is provided. We put a lot of priority in the solution on simplicity of deployment, as we talk about the virtual appliance, but also simplicity in ongoing management and day-to-day operations. A big part of that is enabling a self-service capability for different kinds of users. Who needs access to the archive data set and for what purpose, and really having the right controls around that to manage it. So end users clearly want to be able to access their own email, and so we have an Outlook plugin so that an end user can seamlessly search across both the primary email store and the archive email store in a simple fashion and be able to access that as needed. Similarly, you may want to give to a legal team, to auditors, even to the HR group. They may need broad access across all of the mailboxes in the organization in support of HR matters or litigation. And clearly, even within IT, there's a certain amount of allocation of responsibilities and being able to, whether you want full administrative controls across it or you just want to provide someone who's responsible for retention policies versus overall infrastructure management. So going to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about the features and benefits. We actually have 2 slides that we'll talk about here for a deeper dive on what kind of features can you expect within the solution. And clearly, compliance is a word that has a lot of meanings to different people depending on what it is that you're complying with. Is it corporate governance and records management requirements? Is it industry regulation? Is it government or local or state or federal government requirements? So there's a range of things that you might be addressing, and really all of those are fulfilled by having this built-in records management. What does that mean? Today, with an archive, the great benefit is that upon send or receive of email, it's going to be captured and preserved as a unique record and fully searchable, not just the metadata or the sort of the description of that, when was it sent, by whom was it sent, what is the topic or subject of that, but also the content within, and content within the emails, as well as content of any related attachments. So that gives you a nice tool set to manage that. And there's also layers of retention management or preservation. So we can set a retention policy and set rules, kind of a rules-based engine or approach to retention management so that you can follow what it is that you've decided as an organization is appropriate. But you can override that with the ability to apply a legal hold. So if something needs to be held indefinitely until a time that a particular matter or litigation is addressed, you can manage a legal hold within. And again, this is across today sources of email collection, so we support the popular email platforms, and out of the gate that really is priority 1, although we are looking at the potential for extending content sources looking ahead. All right, on the next slide, just a few more features that I want to highlight. We talked already about the employee access and having kind of a plug-in and the ability for self-service. Again, especially IT folks who wear many hats. In the mid-market, IT folks are generally overburdened with the number of applications, the number of systems, the amount of infrastructure that they're supporting. And the more you're able to hand that off, the more you're able to focus on other priority activities there. The legal search capability, another great benefit of that legal search is that we have inbuilt really sophisticated search capabilities. So you have sort of basic search, but we also have a, kind of proximity or Boolean or many different advanced search capabilities to give your legal team or whoever it is that needs access the tools to really reduce and focus in on the right set should you need to produce that ultimately in any kind of defense. Also, as the email search goes, it really is a very quick operation, and Christoph alluded to this in his description, but we've had countless customers and in fact partners who are helping customers as well recount instances where we need to access so-and-so's email from this 6-month range and everything related to this project name. That's a surprisingly difficult search to fulfill, especially if you're going to go draw on a backup data set or something that's not necessarily designed to enable that. Something that is a matter of seconds or minutes within an archive store ends up being days in terms of really targeting and what it is you are needing across multiple other sources. So it's a nice way to quickly search and compile and ultimately produce required information out of the archive. So let's just turn just a couple more things before we get into the good stuff, the actual demo. Let's talk just for a few moments about legal requirements. if you haven't seen the Electronic Discovery Reference Model, the EDRM model, it's what you see in the top right part of the screen. I think it's a really, really helpful model and diagram to talk through the different steps and, from identification and preservation, collection, all the way through the preservation and production. And these are all the steps and thinking through how do you fulfill these today. And in many cases, it comes down to it's not a very streamlined process. But with UDP archiving, we're really able to fulfill the needs at each one of these steps and do it in a way that you can prove it, right? It's defensible. And specifically, to complement access management, for instance, and having retention policies, defined policies against which you can measure, we also have audit trails and reporting within the product to capture that who, what, and when. So again, you can prove that you are indeed managing to the policies and the security that's required for archiving. All right, so from a pricing or licensing perspective, this naturally aligns very well with the way you think about your email today. So we're selling this in packs of mailboxes, in 50, 100, and 500 packs. And there are options for a perpetual license or a subscription-based offering. So that's there is flexibility depending on, if you prefer to buy one model considering CapEx or OpEx, or if it's more in line with the way that you buy your email platform. If you're buying, Office 365 and you're doing a subscription, it's nice to sort of add on or tack on just the per mailbox cost. So two ways to do that, and then again, the deployment is through that virtual appliance package. There's also a capability for historical email ingestion. So as you're thinking about this, do you have an existing archive store? Are you considering moving between email platforms and you want to sort of archive off or keep the historical email in whole, or even for select employees, your executive staff? Do you want to import and ingest some set of that historical so that you can then going forward just focus on archiving of new messages? All right, and just to recap what we've talked about, I think one of the most important things, I sort of referenced our emphasis on simplicity and consumption, ease of use, and part of that is really pulling this in to be part of the UDP portfolio and the UDP solution suite. So there's sort of back-end and front-end considerations, and we really believe that this needs to be a seamless experience. So the luxury here is that we are able to bring this out to market as UDP archiving as part of our solution. It has a very, very nice user experience, something that we will be integrating much more deeply with the overall UDP set with backup and recovery, where many of you do business with us already today, and the recent additions to really enhance a lot of our capabilities also in disaster recovery and high availability. So we want to, going forward, continue to build out that seamless experience. But that experience is hard to talk about without something else to look at. So I'm going to hand it over to Mark so you guys can see the good stuff, which is the actual user interface and the actual product so you can see for yourselves. So with that, Mark, I will hand over to you.
Hey, thanks, Erica. So the solution itself, as I think Christoph mentioned before, runs on a virtual appliance today. This one, just for interest's sake, happens to be running on Hyper-V in one of our test labs. So, and it's accessed through a browser, right? So pretty easy to access. I'm using Chrome right now, but I've tried all of them, all the major browsers, and they all work great. So whatever, pick your poison, whatever you want to use. So going back to when we were talking about the kind of the role-based access model, at the top of the pyramid here would be the super admin. So in the case of an enterprise, that might be the top line content manager, email manager, and underneath that you're going to have your multiple email domains. In the case of a managed service model or a multi-tenant, that would be the top line access. So I'm going to log in as super user, or super admin, I should say, and we'll take a look at what that view looks like. And again, keep in mind that, as we had mentioned before, that the top two tiers of administration, super admin, and then like a domain admin, they don't have access to the content. They don't see the messages. That's for the audit level, and then for the individual users to be able to see their own content. So when I log in as super admin here, I get kind of a high-level health and statistics view. So if you look at this, this is the health view. It shows me my configuration of my instance, my overall instance. It shows me how many records have been ingested. So if you look in the last, this is a test environment, so we're using it pretty hard right now. So if you look here, within the last 24 hours, we've ingested 86,000 emails into the system. And it gives me an average of how big those are. And it shows me how much disk space I'm using. So out of 100 gig that we allotted for the archive, 86,000 emails, I'm sorry, we're using about 6 gigabytes of space. So it's very, very efficient. So keep in mind, when we're ingesting these emails into the archive, we're doing a single instance store across both the message and the attachments, and we're doing a full text index. And that's what gives us our search capabilities for the auditor or the end user, right? So if we look at kind of the statistics view, like I said, it's just going to give me kind of an overall that we've ingested almost 90,000 emails in the last 24 hours. If this was a normal view, you'd see an historic view here by month, by date. Down here under administration, domains, this is where the top line super admin would set up all the email domains that are going to be under the umbrella of this instance, right? And this could be in a multi-tenant mode. Each one of these might be a different company, or in a single organization mode, each one of these might be a different department. Most organizations have multiple email domains based on, marketing or manufacturing or whatever the, whatever the company needs. So, and you can assign a different admin to each one of those, right? So these are the email domains that are under my management here. To add a domain, we would simply add a domain and enter it in there. Under profiles, these are the profiles for the domains, where we can actually go in and look at who's assigned as the admin, right, and which domains they're administrating. And here's where I would actually assign those administrators. And keep in mind that administrator has the ability to, and I'll show you the administrator view in a second here, but the administrator has the ability to do a lot of things under their domain only, or multiple domains. You can assign multiple domains to an administrator. So they have the ability to kind of manage what's going on below them, add users, add legal holds, those kinds of things, right? We also have the ability to do migration, move messages from one location to another, or one repository to another, or historical ingestion, as Erica was talking about before, right? And we can do that on a select basis. And if we look down here under configuration, this is kind of an overall configuration for the top line instance here. It gives me the ability to go out and increase the size of my disk allotment for my archive if I need to do that. By default, it installs with a 100 gig archive, and we can always go out and enlarge that later. We have the ability to start and stop any services here, shut it down, or if we need to, we can kick out the support logs for support purposes. And if you notice up here, there's an email retention, and this is a top-line retention. So keep in mind that each admin has the ability to assign a retention policy for each email domain, right? And keep in mind that, once these messages are ingested into the archive, they're immutable. The only way they can be deleted, per se, would be through retention disposition when the retention runs out. But the top line super admin has the ability to put an overall retention policy on the entire instance here. So if you look here, my retention policy is basically 3,000 days, which is, close to 10 years, right? So most of the time, the domains underneath are going to have much shorter retention policies. This is just so that, if a certain domain doesn't or forgets to set a retention policy, this will at least cut it off at 3,000 days. And we have the ability to use SSL access, so you can go down here and load your SSL keys. So let's, I'm going to log out here. And I'm going to log in as just an admin, right? And you'll see that the view is somewhat similar, but I get a different set of metrics. So up here, it's showing me all the emails for the domains that I manage, and this administrator only, or this admin only manages one domain, but it shows me how many emails have been ingested, how many emails have been received, processed in the last 24 hours, 1 week, 30 days. So like I said, this is a very recent build. So we've ingested 85,000 plus emails in the last 24 hours. We also keep a full audit log. So I'm the only one that's really logged into this. So there's not a ton of activity in here, but it shows you everything that goes on from an audit trail perspective with this email domain, right? Who logged in, who logged out, the searches that took place, everything. So this is an audit trail. So if there is a legal issue, besides being able to produce the messages and the content, you also have the ability to prove that that content wasn't tampered with, and only people who are authorized to access it have had access to it. Okay. So under administration would be where I can add my users. So you see I only have a few users in here, and we can add them one at a time, or we can actually go down and use LDAP and interact with active domain or domain and import those users, right? So here's where I would be able to see the domains that I administer, and right here I've been assigned this domain by the super admin. This is the only domain that I have access to control or administrate. Here's where I can go down and create groups of users. So if I wanted to, I could add a group, add some users to it, and then later on be able to apply maybe a retention rule based on a group. So let's say you have your executives and you want them to have a different retention policy than maybe the rest of the organization for financial purposes or whatever. You can actually do that. So you could create a group, add users, and then assign policies to that group as well. So if we go down to retention rules, here's where I can add a retention rule, and we can be very granular. We can add it by the whole domain. We can add it, put a retention rule in place by who sent it or who received it, right? And here's where we'd say days to retain. So in other words, we could be very granular around what types of retention rules we create. It doesn't have to be by the entire domain only. We can break it down and do things a little bit more granular than that. Here's where I can apply a legal hold. So if I need to apply a legal hold, I can go out and apply it to an email address or group or whatever. So in the case of there's a legal issue, I have a group of users whose email is under review or we're saving, I can apply a legal hold, and a legal hold will override any retention policy. So as long as messages or content is on legal hold, retention disposition won't delete those, right? You want to make sure that those are retained until the legal issue or the compliance issue has been resolved, and you take the legal hold off. Now they're back to relying on the retention rules that apply to them, okay? We also have the ability to create exception rules in the archive. So maybe we want to exclude certain content from being archived, right? It might be my message size, could be a to from, or how about things like emails that might go to conference rooms or whatever, different things within the organization that you don't need to archive. So we can add those exception rules in there. Okay. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log in as an auditor. So an auditor is the only role that has the ability to be able to see all the content in the archive. So an auditor could be, depending on the size of the organization, it could be legal counsel. You can actually give audit access to outside legal counsel, someone that might not be an employee but might be an attorney working with you, or it could be in a smaller organization, it might be HR. You might the HR person might be the auditor. They have the ability to see everyone's content. So I'm going to log in as the auditor. So right up front, you can see that we have some search tools, right? So if I look under advanced search, it gives me some very powerful tools. And as Erica said before, we can use Boolean strings, we can use wildcards, we can search to, from, subject line, subject and body. We have the ability, now keep in mind that when we ingest this email into the archive, we are basically creating a record for that email. So we have the ability to assign metadata to that record. So things like tags, I can actually go out and tag an email, which means if I want to be able to find it easily later, I can basically create a tag and then go back and search on those tags, right? I can also apply notes. So if let's say I do a search, I find 5 or 6 emails that match my criteria, I can actually add some notes to that, and later on, I can actually go back and search by notes, okay? I can include or exclude any attachment type, and keep in mind we full text index not only the message, but the attachment types as well. So if I'm doing a text search or a term search or whatever, that can apply across the attachments too. And I can actually apply a date range to those as well. And any search that I create, I can do a save search, and I can go back and use it later, okay? So if I look, for example, under save searches, I went out and created one a little bit before our demo today. So I created a search. I was looking for the to address my user. If I go back, it's going to kick out that search again. And that's the contents of my search. If I highlight an email, I can actually see what's in the body of that email down here. And here's where I have the ability to add a tag. I can put a tag in there, click tag, it'll add a tag to that. I can attach notes, so I can type in some notes. I can save the notes, and those become metadata with this record. I have the ability to print this out. I can download a single message as an EML file, or if I choose more than one in here, I can do a download selected or a download all. It'll take the EMLs, package them into a zip file, and download them, right? At that point, you can ingest those EMLs into any email system you want. So for example, if a reviewer wanted to look at those in Outlook or Exchange, they could simply import those into a PST file or into an inbox or whatever they want to do and take a look at those, okay? Down here we have this little tab that says reference, and it'll show me all my legal holds that are in place, if those are out there, any tags that I have, or any notes that have been created. Okay, just kind of a reference showing you what metadata you have associated with the content that you're looking at here. So let's go log out, and as Erica was mentioning before, part of the strength of any archiving program is being able to give end users the ability to access our archive content without putting an additional administration overhead or burden on the IT team, especially in a mid-sized organization, right? It's just one more thing on top of all the things they have to do on a daily basis, right? So let's go out to my Outlook here, and we have a plugin that goes into Outlook. If you look up here, there's a couple of icons you probably don't recognize, a little magnifying glass and a little Arcserve emblem. So let me click on here. So I'm just in my Outlook. I want to search for content that has been archived, my content. I'm just a user here now. I'm not the auditor. I can say I want to look for an email, and maybe this is emails from user 1. Put my user 1. Start at star, and I'm going to take the date range off because obviously these were all ingested pretty much one day. So I can do a search. Let's do it this way. Let's look from. Take this out. Now let's do a search. Do this. this should bring me back some results because I know there's a lot of emails from the administrator. So this gives me a list here. If you look here, it's 1,000+ emails. Obviously, most of the emails that are in there, it's a test environment. They're from the administrator. If I wanted to narrow this search down, I could put other keywords in here and search amongst the set that I've got. Otherwise, I can just highlight 3 emails, let's say, and I can say I want to import selected emails. Now, when I do this, it's going to import them into this UDP archiving folder that was created when the plugin was installed. So I can say import selected, and it's going to put them right in the box. Okay. So even though these were imported today, if I do a copy or a move, and I want to move these to, let's say, my inbox, they're going to retain their original time and date stamp, right? They're going to maintain the contextual information. So here I can look at these in the order that I downloaded them or that I added them here. But if I import this into my inbox or move it, it's going to plug it in the right chronological order. It's going to maintain the time and date information. So your users need to keep that in mind. They might have to go back a month or 2 months or whatever to find it. Or if it's past the retention period in their mailbox, it'll probably be towards the end of their mailbox. The other thing we can do from a user perspective is if those tools aren't good enough, if that search pop-up applet doesn't fit their needs, maybe they want to do some other things, maybe they want to be able to go out and keep in mind if I'm a user and that's my content, I can go into the archive and I can associate my own metadata with it. I can put my own tags and my own notes on it so that I can go back later and do an easier search. So if I click on the little Arcserve logo that's up here in my toolbar, it'll actually take me right in to my archive, okay? So actually as my user, I don't have anything in there, but it'll give you the same view and the same search tools that the auditor has, right? The ability to add tags, the ability to add notes, all those things, except that it's for my content only, okay? So we give the users the ability to access their own content, do their own searches, and be able to retrieve the emails they're looking for without having to place an additional burden on admin, right? And keep in mind that when I'm moving the data from the archive back into my box, we're not moving that data, we're just making a copy. Again, all the information that's in the archive is immutable, and the only way it disappears is through retention disposition. Even the auditors can't delete it. So that does it for the demo today. Christoph, do we have any questions that we can answer from the attendees today? I know that we wanted to save some time for Q&A at the end here.
Yes, we do. We have a few minutes for a few questions. We're trying to keep also the webinar on time here. First question is around backup. Does the archive need to be backed up? So Erica, maybe you can take this one.
Thanks, Christoph. Yeah, so absolutely it does. And in the case of UDP archiving, one of the key integration points that we have with UDP backup today is that we are building in that push button integration. So actually, as this is coming to market at the same time, we're really rolling out that push button integration from within UDP core backup as well.
Thank you. Another question here, is this available as an appliance?
Sure, I'll take that one. So today it's the virtual appliance delivery model, although we do plan to offer a physical appliance as well. That's going to be, roughly a quarter or so out.
Okay, thank you. Mark, this one maybe for you. Are there limits to the size of the attachments? How do you allocate storage to account for such attachments?
So keep in mind again, the attachments, we do a single instance store, right? So obviously if I have an email and I attach a spreadsheet and I send it to 50 people or whatever, we're only going to keep one of those in the archive. So we do a great job of reducing the amount of disk space we need to save those attachments. As far as I know, we haven't come up against a size limit as far as the actual attachment object itself. And we also have the ability to do kind of a preemptive prediction of based on the size of your message, the size of your attachments, and how many messages per day you're getting. We can actually look forward and project out how big the data store for the archive needs to be, and how big or how long or what date you'll run out of room in your archive based on how big it is today. So it allows you to plan ahead and then be able to go out and expand the size of the archive based on you know, your usage, your utilization.
Right, Mark, and the expansion is dynamic, right?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Okay, a few more questions are coming in around cost. What is the cost of the virtual appliance? So on this, stay tuned. We will be providing through our channel partners network the information in the next few weeks. This product is going generally available early June, so we'll get you more details at that point. And again, remember, pricing will be subscription or perpetual, and we also have an ingest SKU. There's also a question, Erica, maybe you can help here. Where can we find part numbers for MSP so we can get pricing from distribution for our clients?
Yeah, so the pricing again is going to be pushed out through to our distributors next week, I believe, is the target. Okay. That should be available in about another week or two here.
Perfect. So a couple of weeks, stay tuned. We will have this information to you. There's a question here that maybe Mark you can answer. When searching, will there be a viewer to see HTML information without the HTML tags?
Right now you see the tags, but I can put that in as a feature request. I don't know that we've looked at doing it without the tags or having the option to view it without the tags. Right now, when you pull it up, it'll show everything. But I can put that in as a feature request if that's important to our users out there.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we'll take maybe one last one, a couple last ones here. So, does it work as some kind of gateway, or does it integrate through agents with mail platforms? It's a very good question.
Was that question for me, Christoph?
Yeah. Yes, Mark, why don't you take it?
Yeah, so we ingest email via journaling or forwarding, right? So in an Exchange environment, we set up a journal email box, and then a message forwarding or message sending. So we do it all through either journaling or just forwarding, right? We don't put any agents on the email server. We don't do anything like that. We don't actually put any code on the email server at all. And that gives us the ability, by doing it that way, gives us the ability to work with a lot of different email platforms, including, like Google Mail. So, no, we don't put any overhead on the server itself.
Thank you very much. And then I think maybe we'll close with this one. Does it use UDP deduplication technology to store? So maybe I'll start the answer. Maybe you can finish it, Mark. So the single instance store that we talked about, or storage that we talked about, is different from UDP deduplication. However, it is certainly an optimization of the storage requirements. So while it's a different engine, because we're dealing with, as I explained earlier, a slightly different animal here, we still have that optimization, but it's gonna be a different engine. But it will definitely give you a lot of bang for the buck, very much like our dedupe on UDP works. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this, Mark?
Yeah. So if you think about UDP, we're doing it at the block level as far as deduplication. In the archive, we're doing a single instance store. So we're doing basically deduplication at the message level and at the attachment level.
Yeah, so in other words, if I were to send an email out to 400 people in my company, because there are 400 employees with a big, big attachment, our archive system knows to only store the one email with the one attachment, but still it will understand that 400 people have that email in their inbox. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, right. We have the metadata just around that, right? We have pointers from the other email boxes or users. So yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think this is all that we have time for today. I would like to thank everybody for their time and turn it back to Mary.
Thank you for that great presentation, Christophe and Erica and Mark, for the great demo. As I mentioned before, we have recorded this session, and so we will be sending that out tomorrow or the day after, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions for us in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us at arcserve.com. You can call us directly. The number is right there on the site. And there's also an option where you can chat directly with one of our specialists. So with that all taken care of, thank you again for spending this time with us, and have a great rest of your day.